I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Monday, June the 8th, 2015. Rocket fire continued into Israel this weekend. On Saturday, a rocket was fired from Gaza into the Ashkelon coastal region. It landed in an open area. No damage or injury was caused. Israel Air Force jets struck terror targets in Gaza overnight Saturday in response. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon also ordered the IDF to shut down 2 border crossings between Israel and Gaza after the attacks, leaving the Erez and Kerem Shalom crossings only open for humanitarian reasons. The crossings are reportedly set to reopen as usual later today. Once again, the Salafist group, the Omar Brigades, who sympathize with ISIS and who are rivals of Hamas, claimed responsibility for the rocket fired at Israel Saturday. At his daily cabinet meeting yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated that Israel holds terror group Hamas responsible for all rocket fire emanating from Gaza, as they control the Strip. The Prime Minister also responded to the lack of response to the recent attacks on Israel from the international community, including from the United Nations. He said it will be interesting to see whether this silence will continue when we act in full force to defend ourselves, adding, "Let it be clear the hypocrisy spreading in the world will not tie our hands and prevent us from defending Israel's citizens." Today, Prime Minister Netanyahu met with visiting Czech Foreign Minister Lubomir Zaoralek, where he addressed the prospects for peace. Netanyahu said it was time to get back to direct negotiations and criticized the Palestinians for, quote, running away from repeated opportunities to reach an agreement with Israel.
They ran away from Barak, they ran away from Sharon, they ran away from Olmert, they ran away from me. I think we have to get back to direct negotiations without preconditions. I think it's important that the international community stop giving the Palestinians a free pass.
The U.S. Supreme Court today voted down a law that would allow American citizens born in Jerusalem to list Israel as their birthplace in their passport. Congress had passed the Jerusalem passport law back in 2002, which calls on the State Department to change its policy of not listing Israel as the birthplace of Americans born in Jerusalem. However, no administration has ever enforced the law so as to avoid taking sides in the Arab-Israeli conflict regarding the status of Jerusalem. The court ruled today 6-3 that Congress had overstepped its bounds when it initially approved the Jerusalem passport law. It ends a lawsuit brought in 2003 by the parents of Jerusalem-born U.S. citizen Menachem Zivotofsky because they wanted his passport to state that he was born in Israel. Since the establishment of the State of Israel, Americans born in Jerusalem have only Jerusalem listed on their place of birth in their passports, not Israel. The issue of the status of Jerusalem has been left as one to be determined during peace talks. Following the controversy caused last week over his remarks, CEO of French telecom giant Orange, Stéphane Richard, said he will head to Israel soon for a visit. Richard last week told a press conference in Cairo that he would end a licensing deal with Israeli affiliate partner tomorrow if he could, seeming to suggest he was giving in to the BDS boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which seeks to delegitimize the State of Israel. Richard later said the decision he made was business and not against Israel, nor part of any campaign. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly invited Richard to come to Israel and explain what happened. The Times of Israel cites a spokesman for the French telecom firm saying yesterday that the trip would allow Richard to, quote, clarify the misunderstanding. The American Jewish Committee presented its Moral Courage Award posthumously yesterday to Zidan Saif. Saif, if you recall, was the Israeli Druze policeman who was one of the first responders to and tried to stop the terrorist attack on the Har Nof synagogue in Jerusalem last November, where 4 rabbis were murdered. Saif's widow Rinal accepted the award on his behalf. The award was presented at the AJC's Global Forum 2015 that began yesterday in Washington, D.C. And the Jerusalem Post Conference was held yesterday in New York City. Speakers included Israel's ambassador to the UN, Ron Prosor, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder, who also serves as president of the Jerusalem Post Conference. In his opening remarks yesterday, Lauder addressed several issues, including the two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians, calling it the, quote, only viable, workable, and negotiable end. He also addressed the alarming rise in anti-Semitism across Europe in particular, and the need to confront the BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. JBS was at the conference yesterday, presenting live coverage of the event. Keep an eye out for more programs and interviews from the Jerusalem Post Conference here on JBS soon. And looking now at our programming for tonight, Monday, June the 8th, at 8 o'clock, former Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz debates Haaretz journalist Peter Beinart. That's at CUNY Graduate Center in New York City on the topic of Is Zionism in Crisis, moderated by Ethan Bronner of Bloomberg News. Then at 9 tonight, Mark Golub sits down with the president of the Posen Foundation in Great Britain, Felix Posen, and at 10 o'clock, international architect and designer Daniel Libeskind, celebrated Israeli novelist Amos Oz, are among some of the guests at the 92nd Street Y. That's tonight on JBS and jbstv.org. And that's the JBS News Update for Monday, June the 8th, 2015. I'm Teisha Bader.